Hello everybody, it's Fufu here, and today I'm going to be counting down the top 5 bulkiest Pokemon in Pokemon Sun and Moon. But before we get into that, I just want to say thank you for all the support on my channel so far. I am enjoying communicating with you guys so much in the comments section, really like interacting, and I've received so many comments and I try to reply to as many as possible, so please stay active in that comment section because I'm loving it. Also, I really appreciate you letting me know whether you like my content or not by leaving a like on the video. That really helps me decide what future videos I'm going to do, so that's very helpful too. So please go ahead and do that if you're liking it. So for the list today, I want to look at the bulkiest Pokemon, but I'm going to have to split this video into two parts for a really quite obvious reason. Pokemon have two defensive stats. They've got their defense and their special defense. So today we're going to be looking at the top 5 bulkiest Pokemon in terms of their defense, and I'm going to make another video that will be coming out soon about the bulkiest Pokemon in terms of their special defense. I will of course only be considering the new Pokemon in Pokemon Sun and Moon and the Alolan Pokemon as per the title for this video. I'm going to quickly go over the rules as to how I made this list, but if you're not bothered about that, I'm going to leave a timestamp in the description which you can click on to take you straight to the countdown. So in terms of how I worked this list out, I did a lot of damage calculations to see which Pokemon took the least percentage damage from an attack in terms of their max health. So that basically takes into account their HP and their defensive stat. It's very important to note that I didn't take into account Pokemon's typings. I wanted it to be an equal playing field so that we could test what is the bulkiest Pokemon without type matchup. Obviously this isn't going to be the real case in battles, and some Pokemon have more weaknesses than others, and so they're not going to make as good a wall, for example, but that doesn't take away from the fact that they have high stats and should be able to take a lot of damage. For those interested, the incoming attack for this video is an Earthquake coming off in a fully invested base 100 attack stat. So that's like a Scarf Flygon using Earthquake against the Pokemon, and all calculations were done with a Pokemon with max HP, max defense, and a positive nature in defense. So for example, an Impish or a Bold nature. I think that covers all the rules, but if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment in the description below and I'll try to get to that as soon as possible. So let's get onto the list, but I'd really like to see what you guys think first. So if you want to leave any predictions in the comment section too, that would be great. It would be really interesting to see what your ideas are going into this video. Number 5. In at number 5, we have Solgaleo, one of the title legendaries, coming in at number 5. So this is showing you how powerful this list is going to be, because title legendaries always have insane stats and they are always really bulky. Solgaleo has a huge 137 HP and a very respectable 107 defense stat, so it's really able to take those hits very well. It also has very nice steel typing, which always helps a defensive Pokemon out, so this is actually a very good Pokemon if you want to take those physical hits. Number 4. In at number 4, we actually have a relative of Solgaleo, and it's its pre-evolution that beats it out in terms of bulk. That's Cosmoem. You don't see it used very much because it's not a very good Pokemon in terms of the moves it gets access to, but it's got a measly 43 HP stat, but a very high defense stat at 131, and because it can evolve into Solgaleo, that means it can hold the item Eviolite, which boosts its defense by 1.5 times. That is a very potent item and gives Cosmoem a very high defense stat, so it can really eat up those physical hits. So it does have a low HP stat, but because of its massive defense stat, it comes in at number 4 on my list. Number 3. At number 3, we've got an Ultra Beast, and it's going to be Buzzwole. This guy has got very good physical stats. He's got a very respectable 107 HP and a massive 139 defense stat. So fully invested, this guy can eat up physical hits. But what's really interesting to note is that his special stats are actually quite lacking. He's only got base 53 special defense, so it's a very polarized Pokemon, and this is why I felt like I needed to split the list into two. Buzzwole can take physical hits for days, but you have to be really careful not to let him get hit by too many special hits because he just can't take them at all. Number 2. At number 2, we have another Eviolite user, and it's going to be Type Null. This Pokemon has insane stats for a Pokemon that's able to benefit from the Eviolite. That's because its HP stat is 95, which is very high, and its defense is matched that at 95. Being boosted by 1.5 times with the Eviolite, this thing is very hard to take down, and makes for a really nice pivot switch in battles. You can throw it in on an attack, it will be able to eat that up, and then it can U-turn out or do whatever, state as the opponent. It's a very interesting Pokemon, and I think it's really cool. Well worth using over Silvally sometimes. Before we get to the number 1 slot, I thought it would be worth doing some honorable mentions. One Pokemon that really deserves a mention is Alolan Persian. It just missed out on this list, and though it has very poor stats in general, it has 65 HP and 60 defense. It does get access to that Fur Coat ability, which practically doubles its defense, giving it a very, very good defense stat, and it can really take those physical hits. So that's a very impressive inclusion on this list. Other Pokemon that came close but didn't quite get there were Alolan Golem. We know that this thing is bulky on the defensive side. From the very first generation, Golem has a massive defense stat, and it's really nice to see that Pokemon here. And then we also see Golisopod. This thing has a decent HP stat, but a really, really big defense stat. We don't really consider it to be a defensive Pokemon because it has got a good offensive stat as well, but it really can eat up those physical defense hits. Number 1. This top spot is going to be shared by 2 family members. It comes with a technicality, but the 2 family members are Beware and Stuffle. Now, these 2 both have access to the Fluffy ability, which really helps them out when taking physical hits. Beware has really nice HP at 120 and a decent defense stat at 80, but on this list that's actually quite low. But where the Fluffy ability comes in is all contact moves are halved in damage. Now, that's not all physical moves, so there are some physical moves that won't get affected by this Fluffy ability and will do more damage. And actually, Earthquake is one of those moves, which I technically was using in these calculations, but I thought it would definitely be worth including these as number 1 because the vast majority of physical moves are contact moves, and it would be really stupid to not include these on the list. And because of that ability, they actually take physical hits far better than anything else on this list. So I've also included Stuffle here. Its stats aren't anywhere near as good as Beware's. It only has 70 base HP and 50 base defense, but it can hold that Eviolite, again boosting its defense even further, and then doubled with that Fluffy ability. It really can take those hits so well. So the technicality is, if the opponent's not using contact moves, they are going to take more damage than the other Pokemon on this list, but the vast majority of physical moves are contact moves, and they will be taking a lot less. So that's really cool. These new Pokemon I absolutely love. They're really cute, really funky designs, and they are well worthy of that top space on this list. So there you have it. Let me know if you were surprised about anything on this list, and let me know your thoughts, if I should have included something else, or if one of your favorites made it on this list. I'd love to hear. Keep an eye out for my next video, which is going to be about the top 5 bulkiest Pokemon in terms of their special defense. If you want to make sure you don't miss that video, you can consider subscribing to this channel, and also click that little bell next to the subscribe button so that you'll get a notification as to when it might come out. You could also consider checking out my Twitter, because I do a lot of silly posting things on there. It's a lot of fun, and there's a great community on Twitter, so really get involved in that if you haven't already. But all that's left to be said is I've been Fufu, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.